tell my story then about almost punching an old lady? No.
Yes. Yeah. Let's. We're kicking it off right now with Death Wish, and what more appropriate way than to talk about Ian almost punching an old lady? So.
I was exaggerating, but in my defense, I would have gone to jail justified. It was a conversation that got heated about letterboxing, and I maintained that the black bars on the top and bottom of a movie on your TV did not, in fact, cut off part of the image. Oh my God. Anyway. Sorry.
The age-old debate. See, you don't have that now. Kids don't even know what the black bars are. It was like, what's that? And you're just like, man, when you have your 27-inch CRT, you got the bigger CRT just so that you could see more of the letterboxed widescreen. And maybe that contributed to the widescreen TVs eventually. So it was all conspiracy just to sell widescreen.
I remember my first widescreen TV was a widescreen tube TV. That I got this like 15, 16 years ago. It was so revolutionary. Like, wow, I can actually watch Star Wars now without the black bars at the top and bottom. But then I dropped it on my wife's foot while we were moving, and then the magic was gone forever.
Did it go flying?
Well, no, nothing went flying because she went immediately scrambling to the couch out my foot.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I figured she would have tossed it or whatnot. So
no, she didn't get those superpowers until she became a mom. And by then, she'd forgotten.
Well, welcome everyone to the spoiler room. Venture down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and sitting with us as we talk movies. And tonight, we are kicking off a new month. Again, folks, I did not plan on having a theme every month, but these things just pop into my head, and it was just natural. So May is the other Chuck month. Yes, that's right. It's the other Chuck month because we will be talking about Charles Bronson, but not all Charles Bronson films, just a certain series of Charles Bronson films, because I'm a completionist and a masochist and many other ists things. So tonight, though, we kick it off with a not canon film. It is from Dino De Laurentiis, and it is Death Wish from 1974. And tonight in the spoiler room, I have a wonderful crew assembled with me. He is back with us from parts unknown. The man has come back from a long journey to join us tonight. It is none other than the BFD himself, Mr. Glenn. Hello, Glenn. How are you, sir?
Yeah. I'm good. Good to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
As long as you're a first-time listener, long-time caller, then that's just awkward. And yes, so glad you could join us. And of course, next to me, my right-hand man and co-host of the Spoiler Room, the man who is, for some reason, a glutton for punishment or something, keeps coming back for more. It is none other than Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I want to tell you how great I'm doing, Mark.
How great are you doing?
3 years ago now, just about, I actually did a podcast about Death Wish when the Bruce Willis remake came out, and I watched the Charles Bronson Death Wish for the first time, and I talked about it.
Uh-huh.
I don't like repeating myself, but I love the spoiler room so much that I thought, I'm going to watch Death Wish again. I'm going to talk about it again. I'm very excited for this conversation.
Well, it is an honor, and I appreciate you taking one for the team and watching it again and discussing it again online. Because it's going to be, I think, a very interesting conversation this evening. So without further ado, Mr. Glenn Bittner, please give us the synopsis of Death Wish.
Oh boy. Okay. So mild-mannered New York architect and apparent crack shot Paul Kersey loses his shit after intruders magically know his exact apartment number to break in, and they murder his wife and mess up his daughter. He then goes on a massive killing spree, which is pretty easy because apparently in 1974 80% of New York is muggers,
Yeah.
and the rest is nuns. And one cop played by Big Lou Kritsky.
Yes.
And he just goes around killing a bunch of people until the cops basically say, you know, hey, knock it off, wink, wink, go away.
Take it elsewhere, wink, wink.
And Jeff Goldblum.
And Denzel Washington.
Oh yes, but
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Where was Denzel Washington in this movie?
He was one of the muggers that get one of the victims that gets shot. I think he's one of the guys that gets shot in the alley, if I remember correctly.
Really?
Yeah, either in this one or is he not until 2? No, he's in this one. Yeah.
I don't know. He says he wasn't.
Yeah, and a lot of people say he was, so it's debated.
It's possible. I would take Denzel's word for it, and everyone else who says he was is just racist because they think everybody looks the same.
That's true. That's true. I was just going off of a couple articles, so I may very well be
now,
wrong.
I think was it Boom Boom Washington was the guy from Welcome Back, Kotter.
There was Boom Boom.
Yeah,
Washington.
he was one of the muggers.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe they're getting their Washington mixed up, which again, racism.
Again, it is racism. But I did recognize him in here, Boom Boom. Which, we just dive right into this movie because, it's interesting watching this again because I haven't watched it in ages. Because this type of films, I just I like urban crime, okay, but this one, I forgot that there was greasy Jeff Goldblum in this. Man, is he's slimy. But the whole theme of vigilantism in 1974. Let's see, what Taxi Driver wouldn't be out for another 2 years. Mm-hmm. But this was kind of a trend in some of these urban films. I mean, was crime really that bad in the 70s?
Oh yeah, I mean,
in New York, it was really bad.
Yeah, New York City was a hellhole.
Mm-hmm. So
I mean, this is one of those movies where I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but especially on my second watch last night and this morning, it was just glaringly obvious. This is one of those things where they use statistics and newspaper headlines as dialogue. And also, like every other scene, someone's reading a newspaper that's right in front of the camera as the scene opens, and they snap it closed. It's like crime rising in New York, or they're passing by a billboard that's like the cover of Newsweek, like crime on the rise, vigilantism, that kind of thing. So the environment is telling as much of a story as the actors,
which is great too, because with how rampant crime was, the fact that some muggers got shot somehow makes front page news.
Well, I think that was the idea, was that someone was finally fighting back.
Yeah.
But then again, how they were able to distinguish, because they're all dead. I guess it was because it was the same caliber bullet they were all being killed with. Because you're kind of right. If it's a bunch of like hoods killing themselves in the street or dying, like how do you know it's just not inter-gang crime or like muggers trying to mug each other or something other than as aside from someone trying to take them out?
Yeah, there is an assumption made. I mean, there's some holes to fill, and not
plenty
just
of holes to fill.
Not just the ones that old Chuck Bronson puts in people. What I found interesting for revenge films, normally the guy seeking revenge is seeking out the ones who did the crime, but apparently, Kersey doesn't give a shit about who it is. He just wants to take out muggers in the hopes of maybe that one of these guys he's killing is one of the guys that attacked his wife. I mean, he doesn't seem to really care of finding out who actually did the crime. He's just going to go out and blow some people away.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because you get the sense that he gets the sense from the cops that there's no, especially because his daughter, who was in a vegetative state after the trauma of being, sexually assaulted and her mom dying right next to her, she can't or won't identify the muggers by looking at
Right.
those books. And so the cops are like, we're never going to find these guys. They didn't leave any prints. There's no way to really tell because we've got a million crimes going on in the city. So I think that's one of the things that's fascinating about this film and makes it unlike a lot of other movies of its kind that I've seen, is it doesn't have that tidy resolution. I remember from the remake with Bruce Willis, which I kind of liked, but for different reasons, that gets more into like the guy pulling the strings on a lot of the crime that ended up killing the family was actually his brother-in-law or something like that. It was Vincent D'Onofrio. I'm like, whatever. This movie is much closer to real life in terms of the randomness. Like if he goes out on a killing spree, he doesn't necessarily want to get that revenge. He's striking out at the system that allowed that to happen to his wife. So I like the untidiness. I didn't care for, and especially because of a lot of the headlines we're seeing today, I had forgotten that when he goes and starts shooting people, he might shoot people, pull a knife or a gun on him, but then he goes in for the kill. It's not that he shoots him, that he'll shoot someone in the side, and that's enough to, possibly kill them or at least make sure that they're not going to be out on the streets again. But he'll go up and just like shoot him, plug him a couple of times. He'll murder them.
Well, you don't want someone to identify you. I mean, that.
But the identification, that's where this movie gets a little fuzzy, because it's like he doesn't want to get caught. He always flees the scene, but the killing people seems, and maybe it's because we don't have a voiceover. He's not talking to anybody about what he's doing. It's all inside his head, and we're not in there with him. So I don't know how much of that is to protect his own identity versus him just being like, I'm going to clean up the streets, and that includes leaving no specks of dirt in my wake.
What do you think, Glenn? Did he just become a cold-blooded killer?
I mean, he's lucky in the fact that every single person he murders in this has an extensive criminal record. And it wasn't some guy who was like, he just fell in them with the wrong crowd and he made a one-time mistake. No, these guys all have criminal records. So, to just, I guess to emphasize the fact that, this is the only way to fix the problem is because the justice system isn't working. And then the fact is, as Ian mentioned, like, his daughter can't or won't, it's got to be can't, because there's no way that won't, because there's no way she can't identify Jeff Goldblum. If he has a criminal record and his picture's in a mugshot, there's no way you're going to go like, I don't know if it's him or not. I mean, come on.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the won't, but it's also the can't, because she's, as the doctors say, she's gone so far into herself that they don't. I think part of it, they don't want to trigger or re-traumatize her by like giving the Clockwork Orange eye treatment and like putting the book in front of her face, like, look at these pictures.
which to me just seems so not like 1970s. To be like, hey, I just look, come on, look at the pictures. I mean, it's like every other cop movie. I mean, they're like kicking in doors of people who are like in surgery going, just point to him here.
Yeah, the guy's not even out of surgery yet. Here, just point to him. I know you can't talk right now because your mouth is wired shut, but you can point or blink. I'll point and you blink. And they don't make any effort towards that, but that's only because, I think her husband just wants to commit her and not deal with her anymore. That asshole. I'm sorry. Well, not asshole, but I mean, he really doesn't seem to make, I don't know.
That's a weird character. Is it Jack? I think his name is. Because it kept taking me out of the movie. I was constantly thrown, even though this is the second time I've seen it. He keeps calling Charles Bronson Dad. Now that's his son-in-law. Carol, the rape victim, was his daughter. But you got this sheepish, wishy-washy kid following him around saying, "But Dad," and I'm like, "What?"
Actually,
that's not his kid. That's his daughter's husband, and all this.
But that's old school. I mean, that's a bit old school. I actually remember, not my mom, but I've seen relatives refer to, the in-law referring to the parent of their significant other by dad or mom rather than by their name. Not often, but I mean, it's a little old school, but
I understand that, and I've done that too, but the problem is it's such a crutch in this movie.
Oh yeah.
that he never refers to him as Paul. It's always Dad, in the way that you wouldn't even refer to your own parents that often by addressing them. It's like, but Dad, she won't look at the photos. But Dad, can you come to the hospital? But Dad, it's like you can take a shot every time he says Dad, and you'll be drunk before the first killing happens.
A new drinking game for Death Wish. Take a shot every time he says Dad.
Death Swish.
I'm pretty sure Paul was drinking a lot too, because for someone who had his wife murdered, his daughter raped, and is on a vengeance quest, he smiles way too fucking much.
Oh yeah. Well, when he does choose to smile, otherwise, I think that's part of the issue with his character is that there's like one spot where he actually, I think, kind of shows emotion, and it's later on when they show the photos of their trip, because the movie opens with them on a trip, and he gets the photos, and I was like, wait, did Charles Bronson actually show an emotion? Because I'm sorry, but when he is the loving husband and his wife is dead, his face kind of twitches a little, but he's just like, and the camera actually has to move to try to give some emotion to it, because Charles Bronson is just like,
well, no, he's in the hospital when he gets the news. I blame that on the director, Michael Winner. I mean, I think overall this movie is pretty well directed, but that particular shot, they need to pull back, because you're right. I actually had to go back because I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. You can see that his face is quivering and that his body is shaking. It's just way too tight on his face. You're not exactly sure. There's more going on with his body than in his face. I think if it pulled back to like a medium shot, it would have been more impactful. You could say that he's in shock, but you also get the sense that he's just this kind of a detached just guy based on he describes his upbringing, like the weird relationship that his parents had. I'm like, yeah, I'd be kind of fucked up too.
Let's not forget his trip after the initial attack and stuff. He decides to go on a trip out to the grandfather of one of North's possible parents. No, just kidding.
They should have gotten Dan Aykroyd to be in that Bruce Willis remake as Ames Jane Chill.
As the Southern boy who, it's a weird way to present the fact that our mild-mannered architect is actually a Korean War vet who knows how to handle many weapons, apparently, and can shoot very well. Because they sent him on a trip, which kind of makes sense. They want him to get away from New York, but while he's there, he meets, Wild Bill, and and this was just a weird way to, I think, introduce the fact that, though fitting because he's in the South, no offense to anyone, just simple fact where guns are rather prevalent, that he's proficient with a gun. Glenn, does this seem a little bit out of the blue? Like all of a sudden, oh, look, hey, by the way, he knows how to... I mean,
at least they give something to it as opposed to him just... I mean, if they never show this, then all of a sudden he's just an architect who suddenly is just amazing with a gun. What? Because, like, well, I'm an architect. I studied engineering, so I can factor out vectors and velocity. And I already know how to do the science, so that's why I'm such a good shot.
Suddenly it's like equilibrium and he comes flying in and figuring out the math of gunshot. Anyway,
now if we had that scene, him sitting in his drawing board, picked like a picture of Mugger and then doing like getting the protractor out and measuring angles and stuff, that'd be awesome.
Can you move 90 degrees?
Death measure, just
measure twice, kill once.
That's the tagline at the bottom. Death measure.
All right, we're done here.
There we're done. Copyright spoiler room. There you go. That's the spin-off. Death measure. Measure twice, kill once. From Canon Group Films. But
that's beautiful.
That is quite beautiful. So we've got our guy Kersey, who, again, he seems more he's bent on killing any mugger out there. and I didn't know how to feel about this, because on one hand, it's like you said, he's trying to clean up the streets, but it's just like you said, Glenn, it's like this guy's just, I don't know where to feel about Kersey at all. I mean, it's kind of like, am I supposed to be rooting for him? Is this a satire? Is this, what are we trying to tell the audience? Go ahead and grab your guns from the South and go shoot up the neighborhood,
or knitting needles,
a hair needle. I love that
hair needle, yeah,
hair needle, yeah.
It seems, this is the 70s. It wasn't even the good old Reagan 80s, but
right.
Crime was rampant, and I feel like this is sort of it's a revenge fantasy, not just for the character, but also kind of a catharsis for the audience.
Right.
I don't know that it was meant for people to go out and take up arms, but it was a matter of, kind of escapism, as odd as that may seem. So, because this isn't really satire, because Bronson is made a hero. There is a lot of political commentary in here about a system that, it's very much Bronson's character is painted as, I think his coworker calls him, a bleeding heart liberal in the beginning of the film. And he, through the course of this tragedy that happens to him, he steps into that dark side where he kind of discovers the love of guns and justice, street justice, because he figures that the system is going to take care of everything, but he realizes that the system is irrevocably broken. And that's the movie's point of view too. We get that scene with Vincent Gardenia as the head police detective talking to the mayor, and the mayor's like, we don't want to make a martyr out of this guy. We just want him to kind of go away. However, we get him off the streets. So they know where to go find him. They're just not really going to do it. So there's all sorts of weird angles going on here. But as much as it's disturbing to watch, there's only one real difference between Paul Kersey and Batman, and that's that Batman doesn't kill. Bruce Wayne goes out every night on this war on crime to exorcise the demons that befell his family when he was a young kid. He'll put people in the hospital. He'll bring them close to death. He's probably killed people on accident.
Yeah.
But, he's got this code, like he doesn't kill people, but I'm sure he has. But it's like it's just a matter of degree. But Batman is a superhero. He's in the Justice League, for crying out loud, but he is also a vigilante. So Paul Kersey is just like the non-colorful DC Comics, non-costumed version of Batman. He is Batman.
Yeah, I had that impression while watching this too, that he was Batman with guns, which they've done later on in other comics. And
there was that big craze right after this with the Paul Toozy.
The Paul. Oh my God, the Paul Toozy. Oh, I missed you, Glenn. I missed you. So with a Paul Toozy. Now I'm just imagining Charles Bronson with that stoned face just going like this.
You could probably make that happen.
You could probably let's make a TikTok. There we go. We'll do it on a TikTok.
And he's got his sidekick constantly going, but Dad.
It's an unusual film. I mean, it's not bad. It was one of those things where I was kind of looking at trying to figure out, what are they just trying to do a message outside of a fantasy? And this is kind of a urban crime version of, pardon, I'll bring it up again, but it's a simple fact of Red Dawn in a sense, but urban crime version, in that it's a revenge. It's a fantasy film of your common man who has been some training vet. And then we're talking, they bring up Vietnam as well, and not just Korea. So that's very hitting at that time when it comes out, current.
Yeah, Nam was still going on with Nam was still a year away from being over.
Right. I mean, it'd be at least, another year before Chuck Norris gets captured and taken to the camp. I mean,
that's what we're missing, a Death Wish missing an action crossover.
Oh my God, I want that now. The double Chuck. Oh, anyway,
Jersey.
Kersey, Brother Kersey. But so is that just kind of this main purpose, Glenn? Do you think is serving as kind of this fantasy for the time it comes out, telling letting the common folk imagine what it'd be like if one of them actually could just go out and meticulously kill any crook that crosses their path?
I mean, I think that's obviously it. I also think this is just the, because it's not the first one like that. I mean, that's what Dirty Harry is too.
Right.
So I think it's absolutely kind of that, that revenge fantasy for, the fact is the world's going to shit and it doesn't seem like anyone's doing anything. Oh, but some dude will just go out and just kill the bad guys because that's what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. And I did like the fact that, I mean, you are right in kind of the Batman superhero type metaphor, because he starts empowering the people to fight back, because we do get the news report of the old lady who I wish I got to look up her name because I've seen her in many places. I love her whenever she shows up, the hairpin.
Yeah, she was the old lady, the grandma on 227.
Yeah,
the old sitcom. Yeah.
I loved her in 227, and when she showed up here, I'm like, yeah, and I could see her chasing bad guys with a hairpin, and then they do that other, you try not to say, well, people from various areas, that stereotype is just overblown, until they show the New York construction guy well, yeah, we saw, Lou, he was up on the rafters and he said, oh yeah, he saw someone get robbed. And so, we chased the guy and, we roughed him up a bit. Reports are he got 2 broken arms, broken ribs, and a concussion. Oh, really? He must have fell.
Yeah.
I'm like, how cliche New York, New Yorker could you get?
Well, I mean, this movie just deals completely in cliches, and I think it kind of has to, because if you get beyond the cliche, then you start asking questions like, is it okay that this guy is just going around shooting people? To Glenn's point, what if this was their first mugging? What if they're kind of coerced into it? That kind of a thing. Is there hope for reform?
Mm-hmm.
Even if the system that would prosecute these folks is corrupt, what about the people themselves? Could they be redeemed? So it's all sorts of questions that you're not really meant to ask in 1974. This is much more enlightened perspective. But I mean, the key difference between this and Dirty Harry, because Glenn, you're actually absolutely right. Dirty Harry was 3 years before this, but Dirty Harry was a cop.
Right.
This is very much the street view. It's like, man, if even the cops are going, they have to go off the books. Like, what hope do a regular New York dwelling architect have? But I think they could have done something a bit more to make that connection between the Korean War vet and the pacifist, essentially, that Kersey had become. Because we're just meant to say, oh, that's why he's so good with guns. But I want to know more about the story. Like, what happened to him in the conflict to make him kind of swear that off and just go become a square? And did he have any PTSD or any of that stuff?
Well, they use a title to describe him when he was over in Korea. I forgot what it was. He was
a commanding officer.
Well, no, but they used a specific term. Like, he was supposed to be a guy there who was supposed to be not promoting people getting killed. Because
he was a conscientious objector.
A CO, conscientious objector.
Ah, okay. I didn't know what that was, so I'm like,
see, I knew he was a conscientious. I just thought the CO was also for a commanding officer, because I thought they were talking about his rank or something. Okay,
yeah,
I got it. Yeah.
So that's what they actually meant, is that just he was the commanding officer, or
well, he was also a conscientious objector. I think there was some.
Yeah.
It was very garbled. I have to go back and watch it again.
Yeah,
no, that's what they say.
Yeah, I just didn't know what that was, so I was just like, okay, because it seemed like they said it with a little spit in their voice, like, oh, you were a conscientious objector. See, I can't even say the fucking word.
Yeah, because I mean, it was equated to they didn't believe that people did object for moral reasons. They thought they were cowards.
Ah, I gotcha.
You won't kill people? You're a coward.
Right.
Or I just don't want to kill people. Until I do. And then I'm killing everyone.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, which is, I found it interesting. I'm like, maybe they dropped in it because I'm like, wait, he's really good with guns. He's supposed to be a conscientious objector, which I get the impression meant no guns or violence. Plus, he was part of a medical unit, which usually means you're trying to save people and not, kill people.
Well, but I mean, you still get the training. So,
well, yeah, that's true.
There was that. My God, I'm gonna forget it, but I'm forgetting the title. But there was that Andrew Garfield movie that came out a few years ago. It was directed by Mel Gibson.
Oh yeah.
But that was the true story of a guy from, I think it was World War II, who saved like a whole bunch of people, but he was also a pacifist, stuck in the middle of this war. So yeah, it's possible that he got the training, that he was really good at it. He just didn't want to use those skills because he knew what happened. But that's what I'm talking about. Talking to you guys, it makes it even more frustrating, because how do you get from being a conscientious objector to making that leap? Was it just that they attacked my family and now I just want to kill everybody? There needs to be a drinking buddy or an internal like a narration or something, because I want to know what's going on in this guy's head. I don't get the character development just because he painted his apartment orange.
an eyesore orange, in fact. And he plays music quite loud. Though, speaking of music...
Yeah, but I mean, 70s, people painted stuff ugly colors all the freaking time.
That's true. It's very true. But maybe they were trying to go for the angle of showing you how the act of what happened to his wife and daughter broke him and pushed him over the edge of going from conscientious objector to killing random thugs in the street, which, I get the impression that he didn't want to find the guys, almost, in a sense, because, or I shouldn't say he didn't. The movie feels like they don't want him to find the guys. Doesn't even seem like he's looking for him, even though they mentioned, oh, well, he shops at the same grocery store that apparently the attackers came from. I'm like, yeah, but you would think he'd be looking for, asking around, or, hey, whatever. But he doesn't even do that. But I think if he does find the guys, that ends his motivation for killing random guys in the street.
Well, but how would he know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he wouldn't know. And that's almost like an idea for a sequel. I don't think I've seen the other movies, but it'd be funny if those same guys showed up in like part 2 and he accidentally ends up killing them. Just they get swept up in his reign of urban terror. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that would have stopped him if he had caught up with Goldblum and the others, because it feels, because the movie doesn't make it about him hunting down these folks. It really do. I got the feeling that he was so caught up in the media attention on the crime, it just like putting it in his face, like, this is happening all around you. You don't care because you're living this fancy architect life and it can't touch you, but now it is touching you. And he's like, well, now I have to overreact to everything, so everyone's going to pay. Now, I think there's a real good story in there. This is based on a novel, and I wonder if the novel got more inside the character's head, or is it just 200 pages of then I walked into the subway and I shot these other 3 people, and 3 pages of describing the guts on the floor. I don't know.
I don't know. Glenn, did you read the book at all, or
no?
I didn't either, but yeah, I'd be interested to see if it was, something inside his head and a little more motivation on that. I mean, no, I mean, it's what it is. I mean, it's a decent urban fantasy revenge film. He does eventually start to get too confident in his vigilantism. He starts believing his own hype, I think. Because he starts getting this immunity complex, I think, almost, because there's news articles and magazines about vigilantism, all sparked from him, and he gets a little too big for his britches, doesn't he, Glenn?
Yeah, he does.
But
he's collecting his own press clippings and newspapers,
right?
I mean, and well, go ahead.
I just want to point out, apparently in the book, first of all, he's a CPA, not an architect.
Yep.
But he doesn't make his first kill until the end, almost the end of the book.
Really?
Yeah.
Does he just like maim a bunch of people and is he
just,
Batman until the end?
The period of the novel, as it's described here, was a meditation on the way violence twists and breaks people.
Mm.
So it was that kind of like he's just, for most of the book, he's just kind of like a man adrift, unsure of what he is and what he should do.
Oh, so
well,
he was
I want to read that now.
He was more of a Travis Bickle then type of guy. In some respects, where he didn't break at first, he just saw the scum of the city, which again I had almost had an idea, a flashback of a Death Wish taxi driver crossover when the first taxi pulled up in New York. Crime. I looked at the driver like, wait, is that Bickle? Wait, is it? And then my mind went off for a minute, going, man, that would be wild if these two were in the same city at the same time.
You know what? You could cut like a weird little trailer together of like Travis Bickle driving and he's talking to like his fare, and then you cut to the back seat of Kersey in the cab, and then like in the bar, Kersey's watching TV and it's like Chuck Norris being brought home from Vietnam.
We are really building this cinematic universe now.
Yes.
Hey, Chuck, this Chuck does take his shirt off too, so let's just put it that way. Which it
opens with I'd forgotten the opening of this movie, and it's like the weird Brady Bunch goes to Hawaii, and it's all this idyllic photography with Hope Lang on the beach, and then it's like Dino De Laurentiis presents. I'm like, wait, are they going to actually put Death Wish over this Hawaii vacation? But no, they wait till they get to the New York sky.
They wait till they get to New York before they post that it's actual Death Wish. Well, yeah, because they want to show you how happy of a couple they are before the nasty.
They want to show you every single mundane thing they do in their lives, down to checking their fucking mail.
At least it was in a montage. But yes.
Yeah, because they had to list every single person who worked in the movie, because we got to know who the caterer was in the opening credits.
Well, let's talk about these credits. The strangest credits ever, because okay, let's talk about the people who get credited in the opening of this movie. Olympia Dukakis, who just died last week, R.I.P. Christopher Guest. Herbie Hancock did the score.
Yep.
And then there's people who don't get credited. Paul Dooley as one of the beat cops. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So Christopher Guest, he got credited. He was literally in a scene at the end of the movie for like 2 minutes. And Jeff Goldblum, who was in a few scenes at the beginning of this movie and was integral to the plot, not even mentioned.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Well, that's what was funny is the credits were rolling. I'm like, okay. And then we get the grocery scene and the gang members, which I love 70s and early 80s gang members. I grew up in the movies. In the movies.
Yes.
Yeah, because I grew up in Milwaukee in urban areas. I've seen actual gang members, and they're I mean, unless they were dressing, showing their colors, but even still, they kind of just look like normal people with maybe some flashier clothes. They don't have a wicked laugh and look like some kind of, as you mentioned, Batman villains, but they're in the grocery store and Jeff Goldblum and his two hanger-ons are in there, and I'm just like, bad guys. It's just like I'm like, and the whole town's like full of these flashy villains. I'm like, they aren't even hiding, and I'm like, how do you not think they're suspects? I mean, did they go completely underground after what they did to the ladies, which I wouldn't think they would? I'm like, just in general, you would think the cops would maybe round up your usual suspects. And looking at Greasy Goldblum, that guy right there is guilty of something.
But he's guilty of some terrible delivery. I mean, I know we're talking about the great Jeff Goldblum, but when he says, "Don't jive, mother," you know what we want.
The whitest way possible.
Was he also related to the Kerseys? Because he did call her mother too.
Well, that's just
Yeah.
It's a close knit neighborhood.
Well, like I love the ease with which they found her apartment.
Well, yeah, I mean, because there was just an address. It wasn't even the apartment number, because the way these guys aren't even nonchalant about it. She has
they sprinted in, and
well, I mean, she has a box of groceries, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking at it going, you and your daughter could carry the fucking bags. I don't care if you are an architect's wife. You mean you're having that small box of groceries delivered to your apartment, and they leave the address in the box, so the guy's just, oh, that's where we're going. And yeah, they go into the apartment and manage to guess which door they're in, because it's not like they're following them.
I mean, it was Goldblum, and gang members find a way. So.
they did, but I don't remember seeing an apartment number on the slip of paper at all. I just remember seeing an address, and maybe I missed the number, but yeah, it was rather easy for them to find it. And then they it's the 70s, so whatever heinous act we have, it has to be extremely brutal. It also has to be that, so it justifies our man going on his killing spree. Though he goes on his killing spree, as mentioned before, not looking for the guys responsible. He just decides, shooting fish in a barrel, one of these guys may have been it eventually.
Well, I mean, the weird thing is, I made a joke about Clockwork Orange earlier, but the rape scene in that movie is all over the rape scene in Death Wish. I mean, down to some of the angles.
Right.
The weird thing is the Death Wish scene is meant strictly to get the audience on board with hating these characters and wanting to see Paul Kersey's revenge. Kersey isn't there to see it. He just gets the story from, his wife was attacked, his daughter was attacked. Mm-hmm. But in A Clockwork Orange, it's the old wealthy guy who's, home with his wife when the attack happens. So when he comes back at the end, you understand that he knows the severity of what was done to his family, and you can understand you're on board with it. And that was kind of an exploitative and shocking scene, when that came out. This is exploitative and shocking, but without the narrative or artistic qualifications that keep it from just being like, this is ooky exploitation, down to spraying the butt, the girl's ass red with the spray paint and demeaning her that way too. It was just ugly.
Well, I guess for me, I mean, I understand, again, the whole setup, and I think that's somewhat of the issue I had with, there are a number of things I had with the scene, but it was definitely that, is just the fact of, okay, we get it. The crime was severe enough. They go a little far to where at one point it just felt like it was tossed in there just for the exploitative manner. I mean, we didn't need to see Jeff Goldblum's butt. Okay. The thing was,
we didn't not need to see it.
Well, that's true. I mean, it is, it's a, yeah. Anyway,
Jeff Goldblum.
It was impressive, but the scene, it was like, it felt almost random, because these guys were in there mostly to, at least you get the feeling that they were mostly in there to steal money. Mm-hmm. Okay, there was much money in there, so they decide to get violent because they're angry. They've done this act and there's not enough money in there, and they had done enough to demean the daughter and hurt the wife enough to where you figure she's going to die at least. You didn't need the sex act in there to get the idea across that this is a severe act that was going to spark Kersey. And I felt that because it almost felt like forced or insert, because at one point you think they're going to leave, and then Goldblum's like, no, wait. And he pulls his pants down. And he's like, I'm like, wait, what? You just had this idea on your way out the door? I'm like, and you don't need to do that, because she's already been abused, humiliated, clothing ripped. It was one of those where I felt it didn't need to go quite that far. And I'm not a prude by any means, but I'm just like, you got the idea across. Did we need that extra,
Well,
stuff?
and I'm there with you, but the thing that took me out of the movie, aside from the whole like dad thing, was in the middle of committing this heinous crime, I'm going to get graphic here, folks. Goldblum pulls down his pants so that this girl that he's been assaulting and that his friends have been assaulting can perform on him.
Yes.
Is that the smartest move when it's not consensual? Because if she's driven half out of her mind by this assault, she's got teeth.
Well, I was fully waiting for the whole house at the last house on the left angle with this at the point, because I'm like that. Well, because that was another thing too with this whole act. It's like it just felt like it was specifically put in there. Really no other reason but just for this one shock exploitative manner when it wasn't needed. And again, I understand why they went that far, but they didn't have to. They got their point across. I mean, if she was comatose even without the sexual assault, you would understand why she was like that, and then people will say, well, what about Last House on the Left? I'm like, well, you could almost say that as well, but that's...
Well, Last House on the Left was... I feel like Death Wish is a statement movie that is also exploitation. Last House on the Left is pure, violent exploitation, right? It's a low-rent, disgusting movie that's made to shock and put asses in seats at the drive-in. So they have two different... reasons for these movies existing. So
yeah, that's true.
The thing is, like, there is, I think, Death Wish with another pass of the screenplay could have really been something special instead of just these kind of random ideas planted throughout. I like the idea that the one thing I think the son-in-law does in this script is, as Kersey is going on this rampage and he's cleaning up his life and finding purpose again, painting his apartment orange, he's like talking about Carol, and Bronson as an actor and also Paul Kersey as a character is getting further and further removed because his daughter's in a sanitarium, his wife's in the ground. So this mission really has become his reason for being. It's almost like the inciting incident doesn't matter anymore. There's no connection between his wife and daughter and the acts that he's doing by the end of the film, which I think is something really cool to explore, but they don't really do anything with it at all.
And
but 2 years later he gets a rocket launcher. So,
oh, you made him spit take. Yeah,
almost.
Well, it's a spoiler room. Josh, we haven't gotten to these yet.
You got that one too. All right.
We haven't gotten
to yeah. We'll get there, but
we'll get there. But no, you're right. I mean, it is the urban fantasy, revenge. It is vigilante. It's the Batman. They're making him into a superhero. This guy is kind of like, I don't know when the Punisher came out, but this guy is like pre-Punisher, or almost like a Punisher.
I want to say they're pretty close in terms of.
Were they?
Yeah.
I'm not versed as you guys are in comics by any means, so I will not go on record, but he did feel a kind of a bit like a castle. Almost.
Oh, dude. 1974.
Oh.
Yeah. All right.
So he kind of feels, I mean, as far as, you got the kind of a similar motivation, with his character and the way he goes about it. It just, I was getting Punisher vibes as well from Kersey.
I would love to see to have seen Charles Bronson in that skull, outfit, because he was looking pretty badass by the end when he's walking around in all black with the coat and everything. And I wasn't really behind him in his mission or anything, but he had the look down at least.
I think for me, what was tough for me to get behind him was the fact that he was baiting the crooks for no other reason than to kill them. I was hoping maybe he was baiting them and then he'd like either shoot him in the leg or something. Again, it goes back to the motivation of finding the guys. I guess for me, that was the one piece that was missing. I on the whole, I can see this movie I think was fine. I was, I enjoyed seeing Charles Bronson be a badass, but at the same time, I was having a real problem, and I was trying to just do escapism as well, but finding a real problem to his true, his goal with just killing people, because he was baiting people. The guy literally is in a high crime area, and he whips out the old pocketbook in front of the prostitute who, yeah, she's a prostitute, folks. And he opens up and he purposely fans out the $100 bills, like, ooh, look what I got, just to bait the crooks. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's going to injure the guys and ask about, who, does, I was kind of hoping he had a little more motivation than just killing the people. I guess that's what was missing for me. The only thing missing for me with this film was his just killing spree to kill out the bad guys. On one hand, yeah, I mean, it makes for an interesting film, but on the other hand, I wanted, I guess, a little bit more goal orientation from my crook killer. I mean, is that too much? Am I way off on this? It just felt, yeah.
No, I think you're right on there. I think the movie is mistitled. I think just call it Vigilante, because Death Wish doesn't make any sense to me. Does Charles Bronson have a death wish because his family has been killed and he's going out and he's just an architect who knows how to shoot a gun? Does he have a death wish in that he's going up against New York criminals? Do the New York criminals have a death wish because they messed with the wrong guy and now they're all going to be killed? It just, again, you got to get more in the heads of somebody in this movie to figure out what the hell the title is even supposed to mean. Because I feel like if it's a guy who goes off the deep end with nothing to lose, kind of like The Punisher, and it's a one-man war on crime, you can call that movie Death Wish, because he doesn't care if he comes back or not. He doesn't care about covering his tracks. He'll just go out, shoot people, and just like walk calmly down the street.
Well, I mean, he does kind of, I can kind of see the Death Wish angle, because he's just facing these punks like out in the open and doesn't seem to care that they might have a gun or a knife. Doesn't matter to him. So maybe that's
not wishing for death. Maybe it's kill wish. Like he's wishing that he could kill somebody when he goes out at night.
Well, I mean, the term death wish, though, I've heard it used, you've heard it many times. I've heard it used in other films. What do you got, a death wish? When guys go on a suicide mission type of thing. So maybe they, going right at that angle, he doesn't deliberately want to die, but hey, he's just going to do this thing. And if he dies.
But that's sort of my point. He wants to go out and kill people. It's not like, you don't get the sense that he doesn't care if he lives or dies. He gets a taste for it. Mm-hmm. You mentioned how much he's smiling during this movie, and particularly that closing shot of him when he goes to Chicago. That was the one bit of invention that I liked about the remake, is it actually takes place in Chicago, and at the end he goes to New York.
They're totally making it different.
Yeah, actually, the Bruce Willis character in the remake lives in Evanston, Illinois, which is pretty much where I live.
Wow. Yeah. So are you saying that you're the new Kersey then, huh? You're secretly saying you're Kersey now. I get it.
No secret about it. I have a death wish, and I'm announcing it here. You better watch out.
Okay. It's
just kidding.
Make sure you catch it on TikTok. That shit'll go viral. But what about you, Glenn?
Wish
do you think wish talk, death talk? Do you think Death Wish is an appropriate title for this, Glenn? Does he have a death wish, or?
No, he does not.
Yeah.
We've been blathering about this for 10 minutes, and Glenn just comes in as the referee. Like,
just drops these seeds of wisdom. That's why I love Glenn. It's like everybody else we're talking and just like, no, he doesn't. What the fuck you guys talking about, man? He doesn't have a death wish. He's got blood thirst. I think he's got
bloodlust.
Yeah, there you go, bloodlust. That would be maybe. Well, that'd be then maybe.
That'd be about like necromancy or something.
Yeah,
that's true. They might.
Well, I mean, if you think about it too, I mean, it's not like the newspapers had any creativity in this movie either. They just called him the Vigilante. That's it.
Yeah, no, it came up.
I mean, I can't imagine, like, normally, like, they come up with great names for stuff. Have like the Zodiac Killer and all this stuff. No, this is just Vigilante. It's like if there had been like some massive robbing spree, they just call the guy the Robber. Here's FBI's most wanted. We had vigilante, the robber, jaywalker.
It's like
You at
great
least call him,
value.
like,
Go ahead.
I was going to call like the Caliber Killer or something like that.
Yeah.
No, the titles, yeah, the titles in Death Wish are just like great value comic book characters. It's like the robber, the vigilante,
The mugger masher.
the mugger,
Mugger murderer.
The Mugger Fucker.
the mugger fucker, the mugger fucker.
That would only work if he stuck his gun up their butt and then shot him. Boom.
Yeah, that's true.
The mugger.
Isn't that buckwheat though? Don't they call that getting a buckwheat? Or never mind, different movie.
I don't think I want to know what that movie is.
No, but yeah, Death Wish. Sorry.
Do you have a book I can read? Maybe?
Glenn's looking for a palate cleanser now. He's like, oh shit, what did I get myself back into? No, the one thing that caught me with this, and we'll wrap it up, but it's just who's the police captain or whatever who's in charge of this. On one hand, you get the feeling like he does actually want to catch the guy. On the other hand, you get the feeling he's just doing whatever. Is he like just a stone's throw away from retirement? They don't really say it, but don't you get the feeling like this guy just he wants this case to be done? I mean, he doesn't seem to really, he really goes about it lackadaisically. And apparently in the 70s, you don't need a warrant. Well,
that's the interesting thing is because he's kind of doing his own vigilante justice where he just goes into Paul Kersey's apartment, he's rifling through stuff. If they ever did bring him in, be like, how did you get this information? Like, it's not going to hold up in court.
Well, that's what I had in my thought too, because he gets the doorman. I mean, first off, all he does is flash a badge. He doesn't say he has a warrant or anything. We're just cops. And then the doorman lets him in, and then he gets the maintenance guy to just let him in someone's apartment. It's like, okay. And then while he's in there, yeah, he's rifling through things, but he's not really rifling well. He's looking for candy, it looks like, because he finds a piece of candy and he chews on it. But I'm just thinking to myself, if he did find evidence, you've got no warrant. You really don't have a probable cause yet because you don't have your blood match. So it's like, if this actually did go to court, would it even stand? Would Kersey get off?
Well, he would get off because he's the mugger fucker, as we've established. But no, what I loved, and Herbie Hancock's score is pretty great throughout this movie.
I love
that.
Yeah.
But there's a choice here that just drove me up the wall because this movie kind of strays into comedy a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When the detective is in Kersey's apartment, he's rifling through the newspapers. He picks up a copy of People magazine that has his face on it. This local Chicago detective got on the cover of People magazine. And when he picks it up, there's like this wah wah kind of thing. It's like what? What's going on here? No, I think this guy, he believed in law and order. He was stuck, trying to solve 1,000, mugging cases in a city that's just like doesn't care and is full of crime. He comes across this guy who's helping to bring the crime rate down, but he's doing it outside the law. So he's in a frustrating position. I think within about 9 years, he's going to retire, to a little flower shop. He's going to encounter a little guy named Seymour who's going to bring a plant in to make all his dreams come true until he ends up getting chopped up and fed. Yes.
Yeah, down on Skid Row. And so eventually our detective, our captain eventually retires, opens up a shop on Skid Row and becomes plant food. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
But he doesn't actually die because he later on has a kid that becomes a slumlord just like him.
Oh, yeah.
What is that in reference to?
The Super.
Yeah.
What, with Joe Pesci?
Yeah, he plays Joe Pesci's dad.
Oh my! I haven't seen that movie in 20 years. Wow. I also thought it was great that an actor named Gardenia is in Little Shop of Horrors. That just seemed almost like stunt casting.
It does seem like
and Christopher Guest was in that movie. Oh my God. Wow. We've got a Little Shop of Horrors Death Wish crossover here.
Along with Missing in Action. And
yeah, Christopher Guest, his character got tired of being a cop who was asked to compromise his principles, so he just becomes a collector of curios. My, what an interesting plant you have. We're gonna make this happen, guys.
It's in New York, so I mean we've got this, you know.
And I'm pretty sure the plant was played by Freddie Boom Boom Washington.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
And on that note,
feed me, Mr. Carter.
Welcome back, Audrey 2.
Feed me all night long, Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter.
That plant's eating people. Who?
Yeah.
That plant. Where? Over there. What?
Wow. Oh yeah, Death Wish.
There's your theme for next month. Welcome back, Cotter.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Canon.
Welcome back, Canon. Ooh.
This is turning into a canon year. I think we will wrap it up. Not a deep film, an interesting film, what they were going for. And yeah, it really brought Mr. Mr. Charles Bronson to the forefront. I mean, he already was known, but really this is, when you say Charles Bronson, most people immediately think Death Wish. I mean, they just, yeah. I mean, never mind the Westerns and such. No, you say Charles Bronson, like, oh, Death Wish. There you go. So this is the film that kind of kicks it off. But even though they leave it for a sequel, I don't think there was ever a plan for a sequel until Canon came along. But that's for next week. There's a whole
Canon
chapter.
to rescue.
There's a whole chapter of those 3 movies in here.
Nice.
So I got to read that up on that. But so I guess we'll just go with your final thought with Death Wish. Glenn, your final thought with Death Wish, and is this film, I mean, a lot of people consider it this classic urban crime film. What's your final thought with it?
I mean, if you never watch this, your life is not really any worse off.
Yeah.
It's I mean, because even just in the genre of like 70s type, violent crime movies, it's not even that spectacular. Mm-hmm. And as we've shown, he's just kind of, I mean, he's not really a hero, and he's not really anything. He's just wandering aimlessly, killing people.
Yeah, with a lot of ammo, apparently. He goes through a lot of ammo, which I don't remember seeing in that box, so he had to buy it from somewhere.
Oh, the box was like the TARDIS, It's just you can open it up and just endless supply of bullets.
It's like those cans of peanuts. That fake can of peanuts. You just open up and bullets just keep popping out. In there.
It's like a snake can, only with bullets. Yeah,
don't open up that can of peanuts. It could be a bad day.
Point it away from you. Ian, what about you with your final thought? I appreciate you wanting to talk about it again, even though you had a few years ago. But your final thoughts, has it changed at all since you first watched it, or?
Here's the weird thing. I think it's a function of me getting older and watching too many movies, because I feel like and I have to go back and listen to my conversation from a few years ago. I remember liking it more then than I do now. I just feel like I'm thinking about it differently. Like the crime and just the way Kersey carries out his mission just rubs me the wrong way more now than it did then. And also, I think I watched Death Wish 2 at that time, but I honestly cannot remember anything about it or if I even did watch it. So next week is going to be a lot of fun. So it's going to be a trip down memory lane or a first time viewing. I don't know.
I was going to say, it's going to be like you watched it for the first time all over again. So, so yeah, and I'm the same. I mean, it's one of those where it's watchable, sure. I mean, just for what it is, the kind of the urban crime thing, and seeing all the people in it, I just couldn't believe all the people that end up showing up in this film as just little minor one-off characters, one-scene characters. But in the end, yeah, I was like, it had that potential, but it's lacking a little something with the Kersey character, and it's not Bronson's acting. Though, you know, I mean, he does show a little emotion in here. It's kind of equivalent to Chuck Norris, the other Chuck, his acting of emotion that we saw in Missing in Action 1, you know, which was 2, but 1. But
sorry, one thing I wanted to sneak in here before I left, because I just looked this up because it struck me. I'm like, that can't be her. It is. Did you recognize the checkout girl in that opening grocery store scene?
I remember the face. I don't remember the name of the person, but the face looked familiar.
Actress's name is Sonia Manzano, otherwise known as Maria from Sesame Street.
Which is in New York.
Yeah.
Which now I got Big Bird as Paul Kersey. Okay, it's been a long day.
No, I think Snuffleupagus looks more like Paul Kersey. I want to see,
yeah,
and he's got more of that sad sack kind of thing. I want to see him going on a killing spree.
Yeah, but it'd be kind of hard to hold that gun with his trunk, though. I mean, you know,
Oscar, I'm taking out the trash.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
One of these bullets is not like the other.
One of these bullets is not the same.
Gun. Bullets.
Today's episode.
Motherfucker.
Today's episode was brought to you by the letter D and the letter W. And the number 6, like the revolver. And there you have it, folks. Death Wish. We've created this huge cinematic universe around Death Wish. Someone needs to cut a trailer of that together. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, now it's just coming up with all kinds of things, you know. Bert and Ernie. Bert is the Jeff Goldblum character, and Ernie is
shooting the people in your neighborhood.
You make murder lots of fun.
34 caliber. I wanna be one with you. Yes. Okay. And now that we've corrupted Sesame Street and cemented our place in hell, now's our time for a license to shill for my guests. So, Ian, go ahead, sir. You first. Shill away.
Well, thank you. I'm Ian Simmons. I'm the proprietor of Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. You can also find me on YouTube at Kicking the Seat. I put out a bunch of videos each week. This week, I'm actually putting out 3 filmmaker interviews, which is all very exciting.
Wow.
I usually have some kind of a Friday live stream to plug, but we're not doing those anymore, at least not until Loki in June. So, yeah, taking some time off. But always fun. Please come over, check stuff out. And also, I'm here every Tuesday talking canon films and Kevin Bacon and God knows what else here with Mark. And it's always great to be here.
Well, we appreciate it, sir. We also appreciate the BFD showing up again. Sir, you got anything to plug? Please, you can plug away whatever you want. Nothing.
I got nothing to plug right now. I mean, if you want to listen to my Dungeons and Dragons tips, you can find me on TikTok. That's about it.
And he's got this wonderful character he plays on TikTok as well, which I love. If I ever shoot a fantasy movie, he's got to be in it. So, Niebold. So there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for listening. And now we'll just say good night, everyone. Ding, 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 ding.
Good night.